And as we continue our Kenya Election Day coverage, Africa 54 Managing Editor Vincent Makori has more polling news from Nairobi, where voter turnout was generally low.
Well, Esther, we experienced, or rather witnessed, a really low turnout around the city of Nairobi, the different polling stations. In fact, so surprisingly, even in some areas where we expected more people, especially places that are considered the strongholds of the ruling party, Jubilee. That was what we were trying to establish why. But officials gave various explanations, including the weather in some places. And others, they explained that perhaps because people were aware there won't be any serious crowding of the polling stations, and therefore they could come later on. And so they spread out throughout the day. That was at least the explanation by some officials as to why either there were no lines or the lines were extremely thin. The truth is, though, countrywide, if you look at even local reports, voter turnout has been very, very low on this day.
No queues. A few people trickling to the various polling centers in and around Nairobi. A rare sight for a presidential election any other time in Kenya. Well, this is a first one for the country. A presidential rerun and a boycott by the main opposition. Here at Kilimani Primary School polling center, voters started coming in early in the morning at 6 to cast their votes. But as you can see, as compared to August the 8th, it is not exactly a very busy day. And this has been witnessed throughout the city of Nairobi and other parts of the country where voter turnout has been very, very low. We spoke to some of the election officials here at Kilimani Primary School.
Okay, I would say it was a bit different. Okay, the turnout, I said it was very low in the morning, very low. And even now, you wouldn't say that it is a normal turnout. It's still slow. Yeah, so we are just hoping by the end of the day, maybe it will have improved. Yeah, but it is low. Slower compared to the other times.
This polling center is in the main opposition leader Raila Odinga's stronghold. Mr. Odinga withdrew from the rerun election and called on his supporters not to vote and instead stay at home. It was evident they heeded his call, at least of not voting. Polling officials told me that a few voters, believed to be supporters of the ruling coalition Jubilee, did occasionally come up and cast their votes. For those who participated, the process was fairly quick and some said simple. Few observer teams that made the rounds seemed to have little to observe. Some election officials seemed either bored or tired as they waited for people to serve. I caught up with Nairobi County Senator Sakaja Johnson and asked him if he is concerned this election could leave Nairobi a divided city.
I choose to focus on the issues in my kind of politics. And the people of Nairobi are the most enlightened voters in this country. And they've been able to see the difference between leadership that is anchored on tribe and all of those, divides, those imaginary lines we draw in this country, and leadership that is focused on issues. And similarly, I've been serving and I commit to serve people from across the political divide. Politics will come once in 5 years. Then there we can say you're this party and you're this party.
One thing that was apparent is the heavy security presence around the polling centers. Batons, police patrolled, some stood guard, while others sat by the election officials. In some parts of the country, voting was postponed due to security issues. However, countrywide, many are still wondering what the results of this presidential rerun will look like. But even more importantly, the implications they'll have for Kenya in the coming days and far into the future.
Now, standing by Nairobi is Africa 54 Managing Editor Vincent Makori. Vincent, you've mentioned about some of the issues why there was such a low voter turnout. But if you can look at Kibera slums, which is quite a place where there's so many people, some of them coming from other parts of the country, what seems to have been the problem there, because there was serious protests in that area?
You see, although Raila Odinga told his supporters not to protest on this polling day, the truth is that some of his supporters came out to the streets to barricade the polling stations and also somehow intimidate any other person who wanted to go to the polling centers to cast their vote. So we know, like in Kibera, there are communities like Kikuyus and Nubians who are not necessarily all in the NASA coalition, which now has become a resistance movement. So I was told by some of the election officials that there were people who were having a hard time getting closer to the polling stations because thousands of youth came out and barricaded some of those areas, or kind of just intimidated by their mere presence, those who may have wanted to come to cast their votes. But a few did come through, or at least go around the polling centers to come through the areas where there was some police and other security officials. And there was quite some action in Kibera. Tear gas was lobbed at people, including journalists, including our own Jill Craig. She was right in the middle of some area where tear gas became a major kind of action there, trying to push back some of those people who were protesting on the streets, or rather barricading the streets.
Vincent, keep your eyes on the ground. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Thank you so much.